Hey gang, welcome back to the garage for another restoration episode. This is actually sort of a part 2 from my last video where I talked to you about how I found this plane and the antique handsaw. Well, this plane's going to get a light restoration. There's really not anything terribly wrong with it than a lot of surface rust. It turns out that it's a Sargent 409C. It does have the corrugated sole on it. And it's not in terrible shape, just a little bit of surface rust. So we're going to give it a light restoration. We are definitely going to do something about the wood on it. It does not look appealing at all. But we're going to give it a clean up and see what we can do to turn this into a nice user. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so you can see from that walk around that we did that this Sargent plane is in really good condition. Just some light surface rust on it. And being that it's from the 1940s, for the years that it has on it, it's in really good shape. The wood, the knob on the front, and especially the tote, the handle in the back, there are no chips, there's no cracks. The wood is in fantastic shape, which is one of the things you want to look for when you're going to pick up a plane. No matter how good the manufacturer is, if there's a lot of damage to the plane, it's you got to ask yourself, is it going to be worth fixing up and restoring? But the wood on here is great. The only thing is, if you could see, I'll get you in closer. The finish on here, it might have been refinished at one point, the wood, because the drips on the stain, it's very uncharacteristic, which you would see on a factory production. I could be wrong, but check this out. So on the tote here on the handle, you could see that, look at that drip right in here. I don't think that was factory. I think somebody might have just painted these over again. But we can definitely scrape that off, clean it, refinish them, stain them, maybe put some boiled linseed oil on them. And that boiled linseed oil, that's one of my favorites for any wooden hand tools. Just the feel in the hand of nice boiled linseed oil and paste wax surface is really nice. The bottom, the corrugated bottom, makes this a Sargent 409C. Really good shape. No rust on it. We'll probably run it over maybe with some 150 grit sandpaper just to make sure the sole is flat. The cheeks looking good, a little bit of surface rust. The Japanning or paint on this guy, I'm not sure if it was Japan or not, is in really good shape. There's just a little bit of rust forming on the top here. We'll probably just scrape that clean. But really, I don't see any painting involved here. The lever cap is probably, I don't say the worst of it, but it's definitely got some surface rust that we're going to have to take care of. But again, the lever cap and the iron and chip breaker are 1900 era Stanley. So we're going to make sure we take care of these. That's why it's a mismatched Frankenstein sort of plane. It's got the Stanley blade and lever cap, but the rest of the body is Sargent. Alrighty, so on the last video, I got into all the gory details of how we arrived at a Type 6 1940s era Sargent number 409 C hand plane. I won't go over all that again. What we're just going to do is take this apart, go through it, see what we're going to have to do to it to get it back into a usable condition, and go from there. So take the frog off. Alrighty, so the frog is in real good shape. You could still see the machining, the lines from the original machining on there. And it does look like somebody might have lacquered this a long time ago. Hard to say, but we're going to clean all this up. We want the surface, the top of the frog, and the iron to have a nice, clean, smooth surface to meet up with. The knob, the adjustment knob, is steel. It's not brass. So usually when you see brass knobs, if they're really old, the yoke here might have a lot of play in it from the brass wearing, but it doesn't seem to be, which is nice. The steel's a little bit harder, a lot harder. There's not a lot of play in there, so that's good too. We're going to make sure that this bottom of the frog here, we want to scrape all that paint off. So where this meets the sole here, we want to make sure that all of these surfaces that are going to have metal on metal are clean, and a nice little coat of oil on them. That way they have the best opportunity to be nice and tight and snug. Now, as far as the hardware goes, the screw for the knob is also steel, not brass. So we'll give this a nice polish. In really good shape. I like how the threads aren't rusted. We don't have to deal with anything being stuck, seized up. The knob, fantastic shape, other than a very hideous staining job on it. We'll make sure that we clean that up and get a proper color on there. And I don't know, it might have been loose at one point, because what came out of it was a lock washer and 2 regular washers. So probably loosened up over time, and the previous owner just put some washers in there to tighten it up. I've seen where if like the long screw in the handle, or even the front knob, where it's loose, the wood shrinks, that you can shorten the screw up. But putting washers in there works just as well, as long as that screw head doesn't protrude too far from the knob. Things that you learn when you take them apart. Sort of start to learn the history of the plane, some of the problems that it might have had. Now, before I took this off, the handle was nice and tight, so we don't have to worry about having to adjust anything with the back handle. Somebody already took care of a lock ring washer back there as well. But again, that rear handle, not a chip or gouge out of it. There's no crack. Nobody has tried to repair a major defect in it over time. So we're just going to scrape all this clean and put a proper coat of stain and wax on there. And all we got to do is clean this body up. We'll lap the sole. We'll lap the sides. It looks like, I'd say, well over 95, maybe 98% of the original Japanning or paint is still on here. So all it's going to need is a good cleanup, and we'll wax that as well. Looks like we're ready to start cleaning up. Now, as far as the frog goes, the frog will help you to identify and date a hand plane in a lot of ways, because frogs were one of the things that would usually change frequently with patents. This one you could see stamped on the bottom, 409. So Sargent number 409, model 409. So it's a series 400 Sargent plane. And this one, the Type 6, you could see it has a 1.25 inch adjustable knob in the back. It's dirty, it's stiff, it moves freely, but you could tell there's some gunk on the threads we'll take care of cleaning up. And it is reverse threaded. So righty, loosey, lefty, tighty. But overall, fantastic shape. Smooth face on the front. Also helps you identify what kind of what type of Sargent plane it was. right, so into the high-tech cleaning solution here, which is basically just an old bucket with some warm soapy water in it and the universal tool in the garage, toothbrush. Just enough to get the dirt and grime off. If we need heavier degreasing, we can address that. So done cleaning, soapy water for the base here. We're just going to hit it with the wire wheel on the bottom to get some of the little bit of rust out within the corrugation. All right, now that we got the sole cleaned with the wire wheel, we're still going to lap at least the sole with the sandpaper. We're going to clean up the top of the cheeks here, and where the frog sits, we're going to get some of that paint off now with just a straight razor. Alright gang, so the next step in the process, as far as the body of the plane goes, we did scrape off the paint that was on the cheeks and where the frog sits. We did do the wire wheel on the sole and on the sides. What we're going to do now is just take a flat surface and some sandpaper, lap the bottom, make sure it's about as flat as we can get it. And all you need is a super flat surface. I'm using an old piece of marble that I have here, and I'm just going to take a piece of 150 sandpaper, clamp it on here, then we'll just run the plane over here and lap the bottom. Just making sure that I'm applying even pressure on the front and back of the plane body. I don't know if you can see or not, but the plane is fairly flat. We got a little spot down here. You can see where the sandpaper hasn't hit quite enough yet. A little bit up here on this side, but across the toe, maybe a little bit on the corner here. The mouth looks good, so a little bit more work. It's not going to take too much. There we go. And that pretty much gets the sole as flat as we're going to need it. Now the one thing I want to do is just put a little camphor on the edges here. So what I'm going to do, take the plane, just tilt it ever so slightly up. And same on the other side. If you could see that, a little bit of a shine on the end there. Just Just putting a chamfer on the end. Don't want any sharp corners. All right, so the sole is lapped as flat as we're going to need it. We did sand a little bit of a chamfer on the sides, which you can also do that I learned. You could take a file and just a little bit of an angle, run it across the corner just to smooth out any sharp edges. There we go. Nice and smooth to the touch. That's not going to leave any lines in the wood surfaces that you're planing. And we can also do the same thing with the toe and the heel. The heel does have a little bit of some chips here. We'll see if we could smooth those out a little bit also. Just drop it into our vise. Make sure that you're not squeezing the vise. The cheeks here by themselves, one of them will snap. So make sure you've got that whole body in there. And same thing with the file, just run it across. There you go. Then after the filing, just take an old piece of 220 sandpaper. Run over those corners a little bit. There you go, and the sole of that plane is now ready to work. Now while I got the sandpaper out, all I'm going to do is take a little bit of 150, wrap it around this block of wood. What I want to do is the places where the frog is sitting in here, just do the same thing. Lightly sand off any remaining paint, smooth them out, and have a good surface for that frog to sit on. Not a lot. That's perfectly clean now. The other surface that I want to make sure that I sand a little bit is right down here in the throat where the iron sits on. So just a little piece of sandpaper on a popsicle stick. Work that surface as well. Alrighty gang, we're back after a little bit of work on the body of the plane, and I gotta call a timeout. Finding some things here, I need to rethink what we're doing with the plane. The sole did clean up really nice. We lapped that. I started to clean up the sides here with some WD-40 and some 4/0 steel wool. The one side was turning out real good, and the whole goal was to keep the patina as much as we can for the original look. This side over here, and I'll bring you in closer so you can see it. Somewhere along the way, very faintly, you can see somebody did some laser etching or whatever, scribed some numbers along the whole cheek of this side. And that is very unfortunate. I'm going to see if I could sand them out. And if I'm going to sand and the sides are going to look shiny again, I'm going to lose that patina look. And really, that's just one of the things I was dealing with. The plane was repainted. After going through everything and looking at it, you could tell all the overspray areas. It wasn't completely repainted, I don't think. I think it was just touched up. But again, when I bring it in closer, you can see. But here, inside on the cheeks, the top, you could see where there was some rust, and there was the painting over it, so that you could see the difference in the painting textures. Where the knobs were restained and lacquered, you could see here around the knob base. It's a terrible finish. It's not going to come clean with just normal steel wool. So we're going to take some paint stripper, strip this whole thing down, repaint it. It's not the path I wanted to go, but it's for you guys. That's the best thing. For me, for the plane, it's the best thing to do is do it the right way. So it's not what I had planned, but we're going to backtrack, and redo it that way. And I know it'll come out looking fantastic, just not the vintage original look that I wanted. The frog is in good shape. We cleaned up the surfaces here. We're just going to do some steel wool on that. That should be fine. The lever cap and the iron, we're going to leave as much vintage patina on there as we can, since these are Stanley from around 1900. So that we will be able to protect the original finish on. The knob and the rear handle, the tote, we're going to scrape down and get that looking good again too. So it's going to come out nice, just not as we had originally thought. So we're going to get to work stripping this now. All right, see if I can get you guys to see what I'm talking about here. On this side, there you could see the numbers etched in to the side, and they're not deep. We should be able to sand those out, because I can't let that stand, especially when the rest of the plane is so nice. And as far as the paint goes, you can see here around the rear knob, around the rear handle, and up front where the knob goes. That just needs to be taken care of also. Up here on the inside there, you could see at the top where the layer of paint is different. So, yeah, right around the edges there. That's just not going to look good. So we're going to strip it all down. Alrighty, so while the paint stripper is doing its thing, we're going to get to work on the lever cap. We're going to start off with just some 4/0 steel wool, some WD-40. If we need to, we'll go to heavier steel wool, maybe a Scotch-Brite pad. I really don't want to have to get into sandpaper. Keep as much of the original finish as we can. Yeah, I think that's the look we're going for. Perfect. All right, quick update. Lever cap is looking fantastic. Had to get some lacquer off on the underside. There's that B casting, looking good. And while we're doing that, checking in on the body. And the paint is coming off. All right, so just like the lever cap, we got the frog cleaned up with some WD-40 and some steel wool. Was able to leave and salvage a good bit of that original look to it. Did have to scrape off a bunch of lacquer that was on it. So what we're going to do now is same thing we did with the sole on the body. The surfaces here and here that meet with the body, we want to just sand those, make sure they're as perfectly flat as we can get. Same thing with the top here where the iron will sit on. Now for the top of the frog, since we have the the pieces of the yoke and the lateral adjustment in the way, we're just going to lay it off to the side, and we'll do one side at a time. So here's my working theory. You can see the front of the frog here. There was some decent pitting. So possibly somewhere in its time, the original iron and the frog had gotten rusted together, causing this pitting. And that is why we now have a replacement to the original Sargent iron of this old Stanley iron and chip breaker, and also why the body might have been touched up and painted and lacquered at some point. Maybe it did go through a period of rust, so we'll get as much of that pitting out as we can. Alright, so we're back after the paint stripping. We got the insides fairly well cleaned out, good enough for primer and paint, but before I go ahead and make the paint all nice on here, I will tape off all the surfaces that shouldn't have paint, like should have been done the first time. I'm going to go ahead and get the sanding done for these numbers that were etched into the side. So we'll get some sanding done and then tape it off and get ready for paint. Well, alrighty, we got the body painted. We got the frog cleaned up. We're going to leave the original paint on the back. Just polish that up a little bit. The lever cap, nice and vintage looking. The only thing we have left to do, address, is in the tray here. We've got some hardware. We're going to do the iron and chip breaker last, and we're going to have to strip and stain and take care of the wood. So let's get the little pieces done first. You know, I keep thinking about these knobs and handles here and scraping off all of this old stain, this drip-filled, horrible-looking stain. And hopefully there's some nice wood underneath. Well, look at the grain in this wood. That is going to look absolutely stunning on that plane. And see if you guys can look at the absolute depth and shine on that knob. Alrighty, gang, we've reached the point where we're ready to deal with the chip breaker and the iron now. And remember, the iron, chip breaker, and lever cap are all Stanley vintage 1900 or so, as evidenced by this, if you could see it, that Stanley trademark step, patented, 1892 on there. I'll throw up a picture on the video so you can see it a little bit better. But we're gonna start off with doing the same thing. We got the WD-40, we got some steel wool. We're gonna clean as much of this surface rust off, leave as much of the patina as we can, and then we got to get into taking care of the iron and putting a little bit more of an edge on it. That's just a first pass. Not bad. So the cool thing, one of the many cool things, little hidden secrets of this plane. This Stanley iron, even though it's a century and a quarter old, there's still a lot of life left to this iron. Pretty cool. Now, we talk about ugly little secrets that the plane has. And here's another one. So the iron, put our square up to it here. You see that? You can see it this way. See that light in there? That plane, that iron is considerably out of square. One thing it does have going for it, though, little gauge here, is that it is 25 degrees. So even though this thing is completely whacked out of square, it is 25 degrees. Now, yes, you can use the lateral adjuster on the plane to get it straight, but now you're going to have your iron always wonky. I hate to have to grind down that much off of this 125-year-old iron, but you know, we can't leave it that far out of square. So all right, got the 1x30 out. We got our guide set up to 25 degrees. Got a little bit of water here so the blade doesn't get too hot. And we're just going to try and follow straight along and sneak up on that line that I made. See if we can square this blade up. Alrighty, so off the 1x30, and I think we've got a lot closer now. Definitely a lot better than it was. Yeah, we're coming along good on the, I think that's like 150 grit. Coming along good. You could see we got that corner mostly taken care of. Starting to get a little bit of a burr. And I think before we go any further, as we start to fine tune this and get onto the stones, I think we're going to lap the back a little bit. Haven't done that yet, so flat onto the sandpaper. There you go, not bad. Thankfully, the back of the iron isn't something that we have to address. It has a lot of wave to it or shallow spots. Just a little bit up in here we'll take care of. And lest I forget, the lever cap and chip breaker also need lapped as well. Anywhere where that metal is hitting metal, where those two surfaces made up, we want to make sure that that's as smooth and level as we can get. And that should about do it. And the same for this surface right here on top of the chip breaker. Yeah, that's all there is to it. gang, that just about wraps up the restoration of the 1940s era Sargent number 409C plane. It was a lot of fun to do. A lot of ugly little surprises that this guy had, and everything from the etching of the numbers on the side that we had to sand out to the unexpected pitting on the frog that we wanted to sand out also. And then, of course, the iron that we had to reprofile. Wasn't expecting to do that. But all in all, this guy came out absolutely beautiful. The mahogany wood, the knob, and the tote looking gorgeous. The brass hardware, awesome. So all in all, really happy with the way this thing came out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for hanging around. And there's only one last thing to do. We got to put this thing through a test drive. So let's see what it can do. Okay, so a little time out, I went back and I adjusted the blade a little bit more sharpening, a little bit more tweaking, and I think we're a little bit closer. All right, not very fine. But it's definitely getting closer. Well, I tell you, this plane is fighting me every step of the way. And it can be one of the most frustrating things, you know, if you haven't done one of these before, to figure out what the heck is going wrong, why it's not doing. There we go. What it's supposed to be doing. Alrighty, guys. You can see we still have a little bit of work to do on tuning up that blade. We're going to check the square on it and give it another couple passes over the stones. But all in all, really happy with it. Thanks again for hanging out with me in the garage, and we'll see you again on the next one. Take care.